Welcome, dear wanderers of the shadowed paths, to another descent into the throne of nightmares. I am your guide through the forgotten corridors of history's darkest secrets, where the veil between the living and the damned thins to a whisper. Tonight, as the clock ticks toward midnight and the world outside your window grows unnaturally still, we unearth a tale so vile, so steeped in the acrid smoke of betrayal, that it has been buried beneath layers of ash and silence for centuries. This is the story of the groom who burned his bride alive, the ashes of St. Valentine's Eve. Imagine, if you will, a February night in 1847, the eve of St. Valentine's Day. The air is crisp with frost, biting at your skin like invisible teeth, while lovers exchange tokens of affection under gaslit streets. Hearts flutter with promises of eternal devotion, ribbons of red silk tied around bouquets of roses that bleed their petals in the cold. But in the secluded village of Eldridge Hollow, nestled in the fog-shrouded moors of northern England, love was not a gentle flame, it was an inferno waiting to consume. Eldridge Hollow, a place where the ancient oaks twist like tormented souls, their branches clawing at the sky as if begging for release from the earth's cruel grasp. The village church, St. Valentine's spire, stands sentinel over crumbling gravestones, its bell tolling not in joy but in warning. Legends whisper that the saint himself once walked these lands, not as a bearer of love, but as a martyr whose blood stained the snow red, cursing any who dared profane the sanctity of vows. Our tale begins with a whisper from the past. A letter, yellowed and brittle, discovered in the ruins of Hawthorne Manor during a demolition in 1923. The workers, hardy men accustomed to the groan of old timber, fled the site when they unearthed it from beneath a hearthstone blackened by fire. The letter, penned in a trembling hand, spoke of a groom named Edward Blackthorne, a man of wealth and shadowed lineage, and his bride, to be Amelia Voss, a beauty whose innocence masked a lineage cursed by forgotten sins. Edward was no ordinary suitor. Descended from a bloodline of alchemists and occultists who fled the witch hunts of Salem, he carried the weight of ancestral madness in his veins. His eyes, they say, burned with an unnatural fire, reflecting the pyres that had claimed his forebears. Amelia, orphaned young and raised in the austere halls of a convent, believed Edward's proposal was her salvation, a chance to escape the cold stone walls that echoed with the ghosts of abandoned children. But on the eve of their wedding, as the village prepared for a grand celebration, under the saint's watchful gaze, something shattered. The manor's grand ballroom, adorned with crimson drapes and flickering candles, became a stage for horror. Witnesses, servants who survived only to descend into madness, spoke of screams that pierced the night, flames that danced like vengeful spirits, and a groom who stood unmoved as his bride became a living torch. Why, you might ask, would a man pledged in love commit such an atrocity? Was it jealousy, a hidden affair, or something far more insidious, a curse woven into the fabric of St. Valentine's Eve itself? The ashes of that night, scattered by the wind, carried secrets that refused to die. Even now, in the 21st century, reports trickle in from Eldridge Hollow apparitions of a burning woman wandering the moors, her gown aflame yet unconsumed, seeking her betrayer. Hikers vanish their last messages, frantic texts about eyes in the fire, and on February 13th, without fail, the church bell tolls 13 times at midnight, unbidden by human hands. As we delve deeper, feel the chill seep into your bones. The story we uncover is not mere folklore, it is a nightmare etched in history, a reminder that love, when twisted, becomes the most lethal of weapons. Listen closely, for in the silence between my words, you might hear her, Amelia, whispering your name, drawing you into the flames. Let us begin our descent. The hook is set. What drove Edward to such madness? Was Amelia truly innocent, or did she harbor a darkness that invited the fire? And why does the curse linger, claiming souls even today? These questions will haunt us as we unravel the threads of this infernal tapestry. To set the stage properly, picture Eldridge Hollow in its prime. The year is 1847, a time when the Industrial Revolution smoke choked the skies, but in this remote enclave, time moved slower. governed by superstitions and the rhythms of the seasons. The villagers, hardy folk descended from Celtic druids and Roman invaders, clung to rituals that blended pagan fire festivals with Christian saints. Saint Valentine's Eve was no mere prelude to romance. It was a night of purification where bonfires were lit to ward off evil spirits, echoing the ancient Roman Lupercalia, where fertility rites involved blood and flame. Edward Blackthorne inherited Hawthorne Manor from his father, a reclusive scholar rumored to have dabbled in forbidden arts. The manor itself was a labyrinth of secrets, hidden passages where echoes carried whispers from the past, a library filled with tomes bound in human skin, and a cellar where alchemical fires burned eternally low. Edward, tall and gaunt with hair as black as raven wings, courted Amelia with gifts that shimmered unnaturally, jewels that seemed to pulse with inner light, flowers that never wilted but carried the faint scent of sulphur. Amelia, with her porcelain skin and eyes like storm-tossed seas, arrived in the village as a ward of the convent. Her parents, lost to a mysterious fire in her infancy, left her with nothing but a locket containing a lock of hair singed at the edges. The villagers whispered she was marked by fate, a child of ashes destined for tragedy. Their engagement was announced on All Hallows' Eve, a choice that raised eyebrows among the superstitious. As winter deepened, so did the omens. Crows gathered on the manor's roof, cawing prophecies of doom. Mirrors cracked without touch, and Edward was seen wandering the moors at night, muttering incantations to the stars. Yet love, or what passed for it, blossomed. Letters exchanged between them, preserved in archives, speak of passion laced with foreboding. "My dearest Amelia," Edward wrote, "your heart is the flame that lights my eternal night. But beware the shadows that dance around it, for they hunger." Her replies were tender. "Oblivious, what would my love in your arms? I fear nothing. Let Saint Valentine bless our union with his sacred fire." As the eve approached, the village buzzed with preparations. Garlands of holly and ivy, symbols of enduring love, draped the church, but beneath the festivity lurked unease. Old widow Hargrove, the village seer, warned of a burning betrayal, her visions plagued by images of a bride wreathed in flames. Ignored as the ravings of age, her words would soon prove prophetic. Now, as the clock strikes the hour of revelation, we step into the heart of the nightmare. Feel the heat rising, the air thickening with smoke. The groom awaits, his hands steady, his soul aflame. What horrors will unfold? Stay with me, listeners, for the ashes are stirring, and so we plunge into the abyss of the tale itself. Let the words wrap around you like tendrils of smoke, drawing you into the flickering light of Hawthorne Manor on that fateful eve. Close your eyes, if you dare, and envision the scene. The manor's stone facade, etched with ivy like veins on pallid skin, glowing under a blood moon. The wind howls through the chimneys, carrying the distant toll of St. Valentine's spire, once, twice, marking the approach of midnight. Edward Blackthorne paced the grand hall, his boots echoing on the marble floor like the heartbeat of a condemned man. At 35, he cut a figure of refined menace. Sharp features framed by a neatly trimmed beard, eyes that gleamed with the intensity of banked coals. His lineage, as I mentioned, was tainted. The Blackthornes had fled Massachusetts in 1693, escaping the news of Salem's hysteria, but not the curse that followed. Family law spoke of an ancestor, Elias Blackthorne, who had bargained with infernal forces for eternal life, only to be betrayed. His body consumed by unholy fire, his spirit bound to his descendants. Edward had always felt the pull of that legacy. As a child, he dreamed of flames that whispered secrets, urging him toward forbidden knowledge. In his father's library, he pored over grimoires that detailed rituals of binding and unbinding souls. "Love is the greatest chain," one tome proclaimed, "and fire the key to its release." These words haunted him as he courted Amelia. Amelia Voss, 22 and radiant as a winter rose, prepared in her chambers upstairs, her gown, a cascade of white silk embroidered with red hearts, a nod to the saint, hugged her form like a lover's embrace. Servants bustled around her. Mary, the plump housemaid with a nervous twitch pinning curls that fell like golden waterfalls, and old Thomas, the butler, whose arthritic hands trembled as he fastened her pearl necklace. The air was thick with the scent of lavender and beeswax from the candles, but beneath it lurked something acrid, like distant smoke. "Miss Amelia," Mary ventured, her voice a quiver, "are you certain about this union? The master, he's been odd of late, wandering the cellars at all hours, muttering to himself." Amelia smiled, though her reflection in the mirror showed a flicker of doubt. "Nonsense, Mary. Edward is a man of deep thoughts. Tomorrow, under St. Valentine's blessing, we shall be one. What could go wrong on such a holy eve?" But wrongness seeped in like fog under the door. Earlier that day, Amelia had discovered a hidden compartment in Edward's desk. A bundle of letters not meant for her eyes. They were from a woman named Eliza, a former lover from London, pleading for reconciliation. "Your heart is mine, Edward," one read, "bound by the flames we shared." Jealousy, sharp as a dagger, pierced Amelia's soul. Yet she buried it, convinced love would prevail. Downstairs, Edward received a visitor, Reverend Silas Crowe, the gaunt priest of St. Valentine's spire. Crowe, with his hollow cheeks and eyes like bottomless wells, carried the weight of the church's cursed history. Built on ancient druidic grounds, the spire was said to house relics of the saint, a fragment of bone scorched by martyrdom. Edward, the Reverend intoned, his voice like rustling leaves, "The eve is upon us. The bonfires are lit in the village square to purify souls for tomorrow's vows. But I sense darkness in you. Confess, my son, before the flames consume what they should cleanse." Edward's laugh was hollow, echoing off the walls. "Confess? To what, father? Loving too deeply? Amelia is my salvation, the light to my shadow." But as Crowe departed, Edward's facade cracked. In the solitude of his study, he retrieved a vial from his pocket. A shimmering liquid, alchemical in origin, distilled from herbs and essences forbidden by both church and crown. For binding eternal. The label read a recipe from his ancestors' grimoire. His plan, born of madness, was to ensure Amelia's loyalty forever, even if it meant igniting the spark within her. As the hour drew near, the manor filled with guests, villagers in their finest, lords from neighboring estates, all drawn by the promise of a lavish feast. The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers, tables laden with roasted meats, wines that flowed like blood, and centerpieces of roses whose thorns drew unwitting pricks. Amelia descended the staircase, a vision that hushed the room. Edward met her at the bottom, his hand cold as he kissed her knuckles. "My love," he murmured, "tonight we seal our fate." The evening unfolded in a whirl of dances and toasts. Waltzes spun under the candlelight, shadows lengthening like fingers reaching for the unwary. But omens multiplied. A candle sputtered out, casting a guest's face in demonic relief. A mirror shattered when Amelia laughed too brightly, and outside, the bonfires in the square flared unnaturally high, as if fed by invisible fuel. Whispers circulated among the servants. Thomas confided in Mary, "The master's been in the cellar again. I heard chanting, and the smell, like brimstone." Midway through the night, Amelia confronted Edward in a quiet alcove. "Who is Eliza?" she demanded, her voice low but fierce, producing the letters. Edward's eyes darkened, the fire within igniting. "A ghost from the past, nothing more." "But you doubt me?" On this eve, their argument escalated, voices rising like smoke. Amelia, tears streaking her cheeks, fled to the gardens, where frost-crusted paths led to the moor's edge. There, under the moon's judgmental gaze, she encountered Widow Hargrove, who had slipped into the grounds uninvited. "Child," the old woman croaked, her breath visible in the cold, "turn back. The flames await. Your blood calls to them. Voss lineage, tied to the burnt witches of old." Amelia, shaken, returned to the manor, but the seed of fear took root. Edward, meanwhile, prepared his ritual. In the cellar, amid crucibles and arcane symbols etched in chalk, he mixed the vial's contents with wine, intending to share it with Amelia in a private toast. As midnight approached, the guests gathered for the eve's climax, a reenactment of St. Valentine's martyrdom, with actors portraying the saint's trial by fire. But Edward had other plans. He led Amelia to the study away from prying eyes and poured the tainted wine. "To us," he toasted, his voice silky with deception. Eternal as the stars, she drank unsuspecting, the liquid burning down her throat like liquid fire. At first, warmth spread through her veins, a deceptive bliss. Then, agony bloomed. "What have you done?" she gasped, clutching her chest. Edward's smile twisted. "Bound you to me, forever, no betrayal, no escape." But the ritual backfired. The alchemical brew, unstable, reacted with something in Amelia's blood. Perhaps the curse of her own lineage, descendants of burned heretics. Flames erupted from within her, not metaphorical, but real blue-tinged fire licking her skin, consuming her gown. Screams tore through the manor as guests rushed in. Edward watched, transfixed, as his bride writhed, her body a pyre. "It's the binding," he muttered. "The eternal flame." Servants doused her with water, but the fire persisted, unnatural and insatiable. Amelia's final words, choked through smoke, "You have damned us both." By dawn, only ashes remained, scattered across the study floor like grim confetti. Edward, unscathed but broken, vanished into the moors, leaving the village to grapple with the horror. The dawn after the burning broke over Eldridge, hollow like a reluctant witness, the sun's rays piercing the fog with accusatory fingers. The manor stood silent, its windows like empty eyes staring at the devastation within. Amelia's ashes, still warm to the touch, were swept into an urn by trembling hands, but they refused to settle, stirring as if alive, whispering faint cries when the wind blew through cracks in the walls. Edward Blackthorne had fled, but not far. Villagers found him hours later, huddled in the churchyard of St. Valentine's spire, clawing at the frozen earth as if to bury himself alive. His eyes, once burning with purpose, were now hollow sockets of madness. "She calls to me," he raved to Reverend Crow, who had been summoned. "From the flames, her soul is unbound, free to haunt." The Reverend, his face ashen, performed rites of exorcism, but the air grew hotter, the church candles flaring to life unlit. Edward was confined to the manor's attic, chained like a beast, where his screams echoed through the nights. Servants quit en masse, claiming visions of Amelia's fiery form gliding through halls, her charred fingers reaching for throats. In the weeks that followed, the curse unfolded like a blooming nightshade. First, Mary the housemaid vanished. Her body was found on the moors, skin blistered as if scorched, though no fire had been near. Thomas, the butler, succumbed next, babbling about eyes in the embers, before throwing himself into the village bonfire pit, now cold but reigniting upon his touch. The village elders convened, delving into ancient records. They uncovered ties between the Blackthorns and Vosses centuries prior. Elias Blackthorne had accused Amelia's ancestor, a herbalist named Elara Voss, of witchcraft, leading to her burning at the stake. Elara's dying curse, "My blood shall ignite yours on the eve when love turns to ash." Edward, in his delirium, confessed fragments. The ritual was meant to bind Amelia's soul, preventing her from leaving him as Eliza had, fleeing after discovering his occult practices. But the brew awakened the ancestral vendetta, turning love's flame into literal destruction. As spring thawed the moors, hauntings intensified. Lovers exchanging valentines reported burns on their skin, shaped like hearts. The church bell rang erratically, tolling for the dead unburied. Reverend Crow, obsessed, pored over saintly lore, finding parallel Saint Valentine, executed for defying Emperor Claudius, was said to have been beaten and beheaded, but folklore added fire, his body thrown to flames that refused to consume him, a sign of divine favor. One stormy night, Edward escaped his bonds. Drawn by an invisible force, he returned to the study, where Amelia's urn sat on the mantel. "Forgive me," he whispered, opening it. Ashes swirled upward, forming a spectral figure. Amelia, her features twisted in agony, flames dancing along her outline. "You burned me," she hissed, her voice crackling like burning wood. "Now, burn with me." The manor ignited, flames spreading impossibly fast, devouring tapestries and timber. Villagers watched from afar as Hawthorne Manor became a blazing inferno, Edward's silhouette visible in the window, embraced by the fiery apparition. By morning, ruins smoldered. Edward's body was found charred beyond recognition, but Amelia's urn remained intact, ashes undisturbed. The curse, however, persisted. Over generations, descendants of witnesses reported visitations. On St. Valentine's Eve, a burning bride appears, seeking grooms who harbor deceit, igniting their secrets. In 1892, a Blackthorn-Hare victor met a similar fate. His fiancée perished in an accidental fire after he confessed an affair. In 1914, during the Great War's eve, a soldier from Eldridge dreamed of the bride, waking to find his letters aflame. Even in modern times, the legend endures. In 1978, a couple honeymooning in the rebuilt manor, now a hotel, reported a fire in their suite. The bride survived with burns, claiming her husband pushed her into the hearth during an argument. Investigations revealed hidden letters of infidelity, and in 2023, just 2 years ago, a viral video from Eldridge Hollow showed a figure in white, a flame crossing the moors. Skeptics called it CGI, but locals know better. The ashes stir, the bell tolls, and the nightmare continues. To fully grasp the chilling depths of this tale, we must turn to the annals of history and folklore, where fact and myth entwine like roots in cursed soil. St. Valentine's Day, now a commercial confection of chocolates and cards, has roots drenched in blood and fire, echoing the horrors of Eldridge Hollow. The origins trace to ancient Rome, the festival of Lupercalia, held mid-February to honor Lupercus, god of fertility and shepherds. Rituals involve sacrificing goats and dogs, their hides fashioned into thongs for whipping women. Believed to ensure fertility, flames played a central role. Bonfires purified the land, warding off evil. Emperor Claudius banned marriages for soldiers, deeming them distractions. Saint Valentine defied this, performing secret weddings. Captured, he was beaten, stoned, and beheaded on February 14, 269 AD, but darker legends add fire, his body cast into pyres that miraculously extinguished, symbolizing undying love. Christianity absorbed these pagan rites, sanctifying Valentine as patron of lovers. Yet, the fire motif lingered in medieval Europe, where love trials involved walking over coals to prove devotion. In England, during the Victorian era, our story's setting, Valentine's Eve blended romance with superstition. Villages like Eldridge Hollow, influenced by Celtic traditions, lit bonfires for purification, echoing Beltane but time to winter's end. Witch hunts provide eerie parallels. The Salem trials of 1692, from which the Blackthorns fled, saw 20 executed, many accused of infernal pacts. Burning was rare in America's hanging preferred, but European precedents abound. The Pendle witches of 1612 in Lancashire, near our fictional hollow, were hanged, but folklore speaks of post-mortem burnings to prevent resurrection. Alchemy and occultism infused the narrative. Victorian England saw a resurgence in esoteric societies like the Golden Dawn. Alchemists sought the philosopher's stone for immortality, often using fire as a transformative element. Edward's vial echoes historical elixirs, like those of Paracelsus, blending mercury and herbs, toxic, hallucinogenic, sometimes flammable. Cursed bloodlines recur in folklore. The curse of the burning bride mirrors tales like India's sati practice, where widows self-immolated, or European witches' brides burned for sorcery. In Scottish lore, the fiery cross summoned clans, but twisted versions involved burning effigies of betrayers. Cultural trauma ties in the Industrial Revolution's factories, with deadly fires like the 1836 Leeds mill blaze killing dozens, heightened fire fears. Valentine's commercialization began then, with mass-produced cards masking darker undercurrents. Blending fact and folklore, Eldridge Hollow evokes real haunted sites like Borley Rectory, England's most haunted house, plagued by nun apparitions and fires. Legends of burning ghosts like the Lady in White of various castles who perish in flames and return add authenticity. Thus, our tale isn't isolated horror, but a tapestry woven from history's threads. Love's sanctity profaned by fire, curses enduring through time. The ashes of the past, it seems, never fully cool. Peeling back the charred layers of this nightmare, we confront the symbolic and psychological marrow where universal fears gnaw at the soul. The groom who burned his bride alive is no mere ghost story. It's a mirror reflecting humanity's darkest impulses, cloaked in the guise of love. Symbolically, fire dominates as duality, creator and destroyer, passion and annihilation. In alchemical terms, it represents transmutation, the base to the divine. Edward's ritual seeks to refine Amelia's love but ignites destruction, echoing Prometheus's theft of fire, punished eternally. The ashes symbolize remnants of betrayed trust, scattering yet reforming, like repressed traumas resurfacing. Psychologically, Edward embodies the shadow self, purging the unacknowledged darkness. His jealousy and control stem from ancestral wounds, Salem's paranoia manifesting as possessive madness. Amelia, the innocent victim, represents the anima, the feminine ideal corrupted by male projection. Her burning internalizes patriarchal oppression, where women are purified through suffering. Thematically, it probes love as illusion. Saint Valentine's Eve, meant for devotion, becomes betrayal's stage, critiquing romantic idealism. Cultural trauma links to gender violence. Historical burnings of witches see often independent women parallel domestic horrors where love turns lethal. Universal fears of loss. Infidelity, eternal damnation amplify the chill. Human nature's frailty shines through. Edward's hubris in tampering with fate mirrors Frankenstein's warning against playing God. The lingering curse suggests collective guilt, where sins of forebears haunt descendants, akin to original sin. In an ominous lens, it connects to modern digital burnings, via cancel culture or literal fires in domestic abuse cases. The story haunts because it whispers. In every heart burns a potential inferno, waiting for the spark of doubt. As our journey through the ashes concludes, the embers of this tale glow faintly, casting long shadows across your mind. We've traversed the scorched paths of Eldridge Hollow, witnessed Edward's descent into infernal madness, and felt Amelia's fiery wrath echo through centuries. The groom who burned his bride alive did not merely commit an atrocity, he unleashed a curse that defies time, a reminder that love, when forged in deception, becomes an eternal pyre. Yet, questions linger like smoke in the air. Was Amelia truly blameless? Or did her bloodline invite the flames? Does Edward's spirit wander still, seeking redemption in the moors? And you, listener, on the next St. Valentine's Eve, as you exchange tokens with your beloved, will you feel the heat rising, the subtle burn of hidden truths? Remember, the throne of nightmares is ever vacant, awaiting its next occupant. Until we meet again in the darkness, heed the whispers of the wind, they may carry her name. Good night, and may your dreams remain unscorched.